Hi, I'm Dr. Stirling Hastings in Camarillo, California, psychologist here. And I'm back to talk more about shame, this amazing subject that just gets in the way of everybody's full experience of life. So, there have been many books written about shame, including my own called Shedding Shame and Claiming Freedom, that talk about the painful feelings that you have, the self criticisms, and what to do to start changing that to feel better in your life. What I have added in my book and then here on these videos is the importance of the ordinary, everyday shaming. There is shaming that goes on around us all the time that nobody talks about, and so it's not recognized as something to take a look at. Because if you want to work on your shame and stop criticizing yourself for things that you really doesn't help at all, what's happening if you're continuing to take in shaming from other people? For example, a friend and colleague of mine had a baby, and her family members, her mother-in-law in particular, wanted to tell her how she should be raising her baby. She had her own ideas, her own intuition was playing, which was actually excellent. She's a really good mother. And some of the things they were recommending come from cultural history that she knows is not correct any longer. Um, and she had difficulty realizing that they were shaming her when they would say something to her like, "You shouldn't do it that way. You need to do it this way. What are you thinking?" So here's what I did when I was raising you, or when I was raising your husband. Here's what I did, and this worked. So this is what you need to do. So having somebody telling you what to do, which is basically telling you that you're doing it wrong, is one of the many ways that shaming just goes on all around us. And she took that shaming in for a long time until she and I had a lot of conversations about it. And then she realized that she needed to be boundary. She needed to say, "This is how I'm raising my baby. Please don't give me advice anymore because I'm not going to take your advice." Right? She could have done that in a non shaming response to them as she refused to take in their shaming. But she didn't realize that it was shaming because it's something that her family had done, for generations, and the way that she had been raised. So how could she possibly think that setting a boundary around that made any sense? She just felt like a bad person for feeling negatively towards her mother-in-law, particularly, of course, the classic mother-in-law, which is another shaming stereotype. I'm a mother-in-law, and I didn't shame. Okay, there we go. Um, so the shaming goes on everywhere. People that are even, in a coffee house or in a grocery store look at each other negatively. One example that I experienced when I broke my foot, my dear friend Connie would drive me there and park, in the handicap zone, and I would limp in and then sit in one of those carts at Trader Joe's. They have carts for people that can't walk around the store. And the odd thing is that when you're in a wheelchair or a cart, people look at you differently. Or actually, what happens is they don't look at you, and it's actually shaming. And you might notice that people that are in wheelchairs permanently tend to not look around. I try to make eye contact with them to let them know that I see that they're just a person who happens to be sitting in a chair with wheels on it. But they tend to not look at me. And I can usually guess the people where the wheelchair is temporary, like for me, that was temporary. They're much more likely to be out and about. So people are shamed just for being in wheelchairs. Does that seem just the strangest thing? But we shame other people because they're expecting to be shamed when they're in that wheelchair. And when they're in the wheelchair, then of course they're shaming themselves because they think that they're not worthy of the same kind of attention that walking people get. So it was really interesting for me because I did it as a psychologist being curious. I'm roaring around the store as fast as that thing would go, which is not terribly fast, of course. And it was very noticeable that there were only a couple of people there who made eye contact with me and smiled and made a comment, much as you would if you were just walking around the store. And I actually deliberately tried to make eye contact with a lot of people and actually even spoke to people and got to experience what it's like. Now, for me, it was just an exploration because, in 1 month I was capable of walking just fine without the boot or anything because I healed really quickly. So for me, it was just education, and it gave me a lot of compassion for how our culture sets that up. So many other examples. I have noticed that the people at Starbucks have actually been trained. I don't know if this is true or not, but I'm going just by what it's like to be in there and to talk to the baristas. They've been chosen or trained to make sure that they don't shame people. If somebody comes back with say their drink wasn't made properly and they come back and they're expecting that, the person behind the counter to go, well, I'm sorry, but that's the way it said on the thing. So, all right, I'll make you another one. You hear the shaming in that? Like you're just a bother. But the people at Starbucks, at least the ones that I've seen over going many, many times, will say, oh, let me make you a new one. What was wrong with this one? They've been educated so that then people feel comfortable. They feel like they're not going to be shamed when they go into a store and want to have their needs met. So please do read Shedding Shame and Claiming Freedom, because I have a whole chapter in there called Ordinary Everyday Shaming, so that we can see how it goes on. So please join me again next week, and we will talk about other kinds of things about shame that are difficult to see, because first of all, you need to be able to see that you're being shamed in order to know what you want to change. The kind of shaming coming at you, that then when you take it on, you're shaming yourself. So join me for the next video and we'll talk about that. I'm very curious to know what you think about ordinary everyday shaming. It's something that is so hidden. I'm hoping that you might have had experiences and you can share them. Please leave me your comments, and if you would please share this with your friends and family and other people who you think might benefit from this information. And also, if you would like and subscribe for more, that would be great. I'll be doing these at least once a week for some time to come.